Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Saturday, and welcome to episode 442 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we're going to talk about the disaster which is the box office for The Flash, the new DC EU movie, starring two Ezra Millers, amongst many others. I have some thoughts about it. A review is up on the channel, but we'll talk a little bit further about the film and get any of your thoughts about it or any of the commentary that y'all might have. But what I can say unequivocally, despite what anyone's views on the film might be, is that the box office is completely atrocious. This is one of the worst box office performances for a film of this size that I have seen in quite a long time, especially since now the film is tracking lower than the initial estimates going into the weekend, which were already on the low side. So we will talk about that. We will also talk about giving an update on Babylon 5. Just a quick update to start things off. I am now starting season 3, so I'm flying through this show. Been able to make a ton of rosaries while making it, which has been awesome. And I have some new thoughts about the show to kind of add on to what I had said previously. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And also just our general movie talk, box office discussion. But also what many of you will probably notice right off the bat is, hey, things look different. Things don't quite look the same. And it's not just because there is paint on the walls. That is not a beige color like I have had now for quite a long time. I'm actually in my new office space. So I will talk a little bit about that too. And one of the beautiful things, one of my favorite things at the very least about this new office space is the fact that there is now a chair in my background, which means the puppies will be visible once again to a certain extent. You can see that Willow is hanging out up there right now. Let's just say they have now been obsessed with that chair ever since they have had access to it, which makes sense because it's a pretty comfy chair. So anyway, before you further ado, please make sure to smash that like button, let the 5-button ask you to smash the rumble button as well. And again, thank you all very much for being here. Let's say hello to the people who are hanging out in the chat today. We got Here in the Steadfast, what is going on? Hail to you. We got also Orange Chat Reviews, who is my king mod on the channel. Do make sure to listen to his instructions. Just tag at Odin, the very beginning comment at Odin. Lets me know you're trying to get my attention, no matter what platform you are on, whether you're on Odyssey, Rumble, or YouTube, at Odin. It's kind of our code word in order to know that you are trying to indeed reach out to me and not just talking to everyone else in the chat. And I do sometimes fall about 20 to 30 minutes behind in the chat, depending on how things are going. So please be patient. Don't spam. No need to post a comment more than once. Just make sure you have that tag at the very beginning. If you spam or if you're a jerk, hey, you will get a warning, and then eventually the mods will take care of you. We also got the other mod in the chat. We got Laura, the Mod Major General Story, in the chat. Again, make sure to respect the mods. We got McRib Prime in the chat. What is going on, McRib Prime? Appreciate you being here. Yeah, I mean, when a movie is not doing well critically or audience grade-wise, you know things are bad. You know that there are a lot of problems. And also, if you wanted to know even further reasons as to why CinemaScore is complete garbage and trash, yeah, go ahead and look at the fact that this movie is doing so much less than what had been expected. And last time I checked, a B on anything as a teacher, a B is not a terrible score. And yet, the word of mouth on this movie is not doing very well. Anyway, Mr. Minnesota hockey fan, how about a hockey player? What is going on? Welcome back to the chat. Sad not to have hockey to watch anymore. It's one of the reasons why I wish that the series had lasted a little bit longer. But, again, congratulations to the Golden Knights on the Stanley Cup victory there. Frank G in the chat. What's going on, Frank G? Thank you for being here. Father Luca Illich. Father Luca here. And y'all hail, just stopped by to wish you a great stream. Laudate Jesus Christus in secula. Father Luca, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hope you had a blessed feast of the Sacred Heart yesterday. It was the official feast day. Of course, this is the month of the Sacred Heart. As you all know, I'm trying to let that be the focus. A lot of other things, a lot of other names given to this month. But hey, month of the Sacred Heart, I think, is one of the best things to say about it. Orange Hair Reviews, thank you very much, good sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, my wife chose the color because I am colorblind. As you all know, I had a beige colored room for the longest time, and it's because I am just not really that much of a visual person as far as colors and the mixing of their things. That's why I have just had bulbs changing color. One of the issues is that I have bulbs in now that can also change color, just like in my other office. But unfortunately, because of the color, which I really like, the color itself, though, because it's especially on the darker side, it does not it does diffuse the lights. right? So instead of it being the lighter beige color, which means it can reflect and refract the lights and everything like that, so you can see the colors, and it almost changes the walls entirely. For this one, it only just changes the shine on the top of my head versus anything else. So that's the reason why it is not in any other color right now. But yeah, I think that I like it. I like it a lot. It's been looking really good. The last couple of days have been the first days of being able to stream in this room, and I've so far really enjoyed it. Ambrose Chamberpot, what's going on? Hi, I see you have a co-host. Yes, I do. That is Willow. She is a cutie. She is a German Shepherd mix, and she's been on the channel before. Again, if anyone remembers from the first house that we moved into here up in Chattanooga, there was a chair directly behind me, and so you could always see the dogs in some point. At one point or another. And then back in my house in New Orleans, there was also a visible chair too. So, the last room that I was in, the main office that I've had here in this house for so long has not ever had them in the background. So you've been sometimes able to see them running around, specifically Willa, because she's so tall. So I am definitely happy to have it back to where now you can see them a little bit better from time to time. Not always, of course. Okay, yeah, now she's staring at me, and it's adorable. So, General Winkster says, OMG, some color on the background, and there's a dog on the car. Finally, some needed improvements. Thank you, General Winkster. Appreciate it. Keck44, what is going on? Great Wuda in the chat. Hail to you. Orange Hat Reviews, to Odin's Hound, speak. Yeah, she doesn't speak. She doesn't know that one too well. She'll bark when she hears something. One of the issues I found early on Friday Night Tights, in fact, Baby Thor was, this is one of the weird things. And so this is going to be, I think, one of the biggest tests while Baby Thor is still up in that room. It's directly above my head. So if my voice is going to carry and is going to be disruptive, this would probably be the most likely night that we would find out very early on. Because all the other streams that I've done, I've been talking, but not nearly as much or nearly as consistently. So it'll be interesting. But because we're directly below Baby Thor's room, if he hits the crib, I found this out on Friday, if he hits the crib a certain way, it reverberates down, and so it sounds like a knocking sound. And so my dogs freaked out on Friday because, and I checked the camera, and I was like, oh, it's because he has one of his, squeaky animals that he was just hitting it against the against the side. And I was like, oh yeah, well, that explains why they were barking. Just Joe 47, what's going on? Jim Eagle, what's going on? Yes, it is really, it's starting to get into, I didn't know the name for it, but I think it's called the Shadow War. And so, that was mentioned on Friday Night Sites because Gary had mentioned the trailer for the new animated series of Babylon 5. And I asked if I needed to, skip it, if there were spoilers in there. But the one thing that they mentioned in that chat was, kind of what was going on. And so just hearing about the Shadow War and things like that made a little bit more sense because we're starting to get to those elements here towards the end of season 2, now starting season 3. So it's been really great. Unknown, what's going on? Thanks for being here. Soul Assassin, did you remember the red tape 2 is definitely going to help? I think the further you get away from it, the easier it'll be. Not that it's going to go away altogether because, again, when we have cuts on our heart, on our soul, they do leave scars, right? Those do still remain, but we could absolutely do much better and deal with it much better and be able to get through it much more easily as time goes on. So we're here for you, man. And hopefully I'm able to, at least entertain you to a certain degree or distract you to a certain degree where it's able to help in some degree. But yes, we're going to have tons of stuff to talk about, especially in regards to The Flash tonight, because, oh boy, things were bad going into the weekend. Hopefully you saw the box office preview that I did. But if not, yeah, things are even worse than what they had originally imagined. Forever Sci-Fi, who is a member on the channel, hail to you. Abomination hanging out over on Odyssey. Abomination, thank you very much for hanging out over there. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. Forever Sci-Fi, who's a member, says, just got with the Final Fantasy 16 demo. It shows the advantage games have. The prologue demo has more character and story building in 2 hours than any movie ever could. Yeah, I actually just finished, since I'm not much of a gaming channel or much of a gamer in general, I actually just finished Tears of the Kingdom. So I finished the main storyline and plot with the fight against Ganondorf, and it is such a good game. I mean, I was loving it even all the way up until that moment. The one issue that I do have, and this is definitely something I think that is much more likely to come from a non-gamer than from anyone else, but there were certain things, right? The whole game is really a puzzle, right? You're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? And I will say that there are certain things, and this is especially true in the final boss fight as well, where you basically, it's like, if I did not have tutorial videos, if I did not have guides into some degree, there's just like no way I would ever have been able to figure out in any sensible sense of time where to go for certain things, because I can appreciate the good puzzle here or there, but I don't know, there are some things that to me were just a little bit too complicated. And again, I know that there are some people where they love not being able to know, they love figuring things out themselves, and I do to a certain extent too. But then there are certain puzzles where you're like, how would I have ever figured that out? Crazy. But it's a great game. It's fantastic. So if you have a Switch, and if you have played the Breath of the Wild game, which was phenomenal, somehow this game is even better. And it's still fun. It's still fun to go back and to play it even after I've finished it. Anyway, Laura says, what is the big 50 on the top shelf? Had to do it. That's actually, it's a 50 film collection. It's actually, speaking of Warner Brothers released many years ago, I think well over a decade ago. It's kind of crazy that the set is actually about a decade old, a 50 film collection. Now, somehow, some way, this set got on sale for under $100. And so I actually asked for this for Christmas several years ago. And it's got films from the Warner Brothers catalog dating back from the very beginning all the way up until like the 2009 region or so. And it's a really good set. It's got tons of movies in there, tons of classics. And we were able to somehow get it for under $100, which is just phenomenal. And that's why I'm looking at the newer sets that they're putting out now. They're kind of updating the sets, and they're putting it out in several volumes. Nothing can ever come close to that, especially with the price that they're charging for these. I understand that these new sets, most of them are 4K sets and include, new updated versions and new updated, transfers and such. But I don't know, 50 movies for under $100 to me is just like, you can't really beat that, So anyway, that's what the 50 is. It's for 50 films. Fred Farkle, what's going on? Automated Showman. Hail Odin, happy belated Feast of the Sacred Heart. Absolutely. Absolutely. We are still in the month of the Sacred Heart, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, today on our calendar, we've got, it's the Feast of St. Gregory Barbarigo. St. Gregory Barbarigo. Kid Cassidy, what is going on? Welcome back. Sherry Allen in the chat. Hail to you. Joanna Winkster, well, Odin, you just need to continuously loud talk like this for the rest of the stream. Yes, because as we all know, keeping baby Thor awake should always be the goal in life, right? Keely Chow in the chat. What's going on, Keely? Thanks for being here. Orange Hat says, someone stuck gum on the Flash's boots, it seems. Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Or someone put an entire forest full or forest length of quicksand in front of him. And it's the type of quicksand where even someone as fast as the Flash is getting slowed down quite a bit. In fact, even tripping. Keely Chow says, how is baby Thor and Freya doing? Freya is doing very well. We just got an update on the health of baby girl. I don't know if I had mentioned this or not. Baby girl is developing very, very well. She's about 25, 26 weeks along at this point, and things are still looking really, really good. She's been doing a lot of movement. She's been flipping around, and it's been fun. And I can basically, with when we were pregnant with baby Thor, we could feel him kick every now and then, but the movements were not as external. For baby girl this early on, because obviously we're not too early on, but this early on in comparison, I think we're past the halfway point at this point. But just again, looking into how it was with baby Thor versus how it is with baby girl, it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing. So, but yes, thank you for asking. Gomer Pyle. I feel like it's been a while, Gomer Pyle, because that name sounds so familiar. What's going on? Happy Father's Day, Odin. Deus Vult. Thank you very much, Gomer Pyle. Deus Vult indeed. And thank you very much for that. Yeah, to all the fathers out there, happy and blessed Father's Day. It is always interesting to me because Mother's Day is always made such a bigger deal. Because I know, for instance, baby Thor, he at school had a sheet that he filled out for Mother's Day, and it's just a very sweet thing because He's, about 2.5. And they ask him questions like, hey, what's your mom's name? What's her favorite color? What's her favorite food? And he's just saying some things that are some things that are on point and at least consistent with the question. But then there's other things that he'll mention on this sheet. And it was hilarious because it was just, he's just saying random words, right? He doesn't really know what's being asked, or he's just trying to be silly or whatever it might be. I don't think they did one, though, for Father's Day. Maybe they did. Maybe the lady Freya got that before I could see it when dropping him off at daycare. So maybe she has it and just didn't want me to see it. I don't know. But yeah, it's always interesting to see Father's Day versus Mother's Day. And by the way, random thought, because I know last stream we had some connection issues, so hopefully that does not happen again. The chances of it should be a lot less, because recently EPB came out and updated something in their system, so I don't know exactly what that was, but there's something that got updated, and in this office space, I actually have a hard line into my computer, so no more Wi-Fi, even though the Wi-Fi should have been fine. Hopefully having and being hardwired in is going to be a lot more consistent. Luckily, that was not a consistent issue, but I figured I would mention that. All right, let's see. Laura says, in honor of your new office space, I would just like to say, I don't like to talk about Flare. Remember Sci-Fi? Yeah, I'm about to get to Ganondorf. I saw that there are over 1,000, or is that 10,000? 10,000 Korok seeds, or is it 1,000 Korok seeds? I can't read today. It's 1,000. I don't have that kind of time to collect them all. Loving the game, though. Yeah, that's another thing for Sci-Fi, right? Is, it's already enough that you have the light roots in the depths, and then you have the shrines in the overworld, right, in Hyrule. I mean, the shrines I've been trying. The one thing I love about this game is that because there is the depths, and because I feel at least the light roots are a lot easier to find, because when you're in the darkness, you can kind of see the ones that you haven't gotten yet. But the fact that the light roots correspond to shrines on the surface has made it so much easier to find more shrines. But now there's like a couple that are just impossible to get to, because you have to do side quests in order to get in. Like there's one under a waterfall, where it's the Yiga clan, and you have to go through the whole Yiga subplot just to be able to get into a shrine. I'm like, oh, come on, people, come on. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad someone else is understanding and enjoying it. And yes, Heretic, wired is always better than Wi-Fi. But again, I feel like Wi-Fi has come such a long way, because the speed has just become almost, the issues with speed have kind of almost become non-existent for most everyday use. I mean, the Wi-Fi that I have is, and just remember, in my area, we have EPB. Wi-Fi and internet is a public utility. So I actually have a gig up and down internet speeds. So I say that about it being a public utility because I don't want people to think that I'm spending, big money on Wi-Fi. It's like, no, I'm spending, I think, $75 a month or so because of it being a public utility. But the fact that on Wi-Fi, even before then, when I had the 300 up, 300 down speed, because it's fiber, I was actually able to still get very consistent speeds on Wi-Fi connection. My guess is, though, why last week's stream was having some connection issues, my guess is that it's still because even though the speeds of Wi-Fi are pretty good, it's still susceptible to interference and to issues, whereas hardwire, I guess, probably has less issues overall. But anyway, enough about that stuff. Let's go ahead and dive into our first story. And again, thank you all very much for being here. 59 people watching. Again, smash that like button and light up the fire button. Honestly, smash the rumble button as well. And share it as well with anyone who you think might be interested in these topics. So let's start talking about The Flash, and then I'll jump back into the chat after this first segment. All right, so we have here the headline from Deadline, and we talked about this on the Salty Saturday Morning podcast this morning, so check out the Salty Nerd podcast channel. They're a great channel, great group of people, and I'm always very thankful and blessed to be invited on to talk with them every single Saturday when I'm available, which last few weeks has been very difficult, so very happy to get back on that. But we talked a little bit about The Flash, and I was asked then about, hey, what's going on with the box office? And yeah, this just got updated this morning. So going into the weekend, remember, just to kind of going back in time a little bit, going into the weekend, the projections on this movie from both Deadline and Box Office Pro were around $70 million. All right, so Deadline had it making between 70 and 75 over the 3-day specifically. And then the Box Office Pro numbers had it around $69 million. And go ahead and make your jokes now, right? But that was what it had, right? So the range on that one had it going, a little bit below that. So 60, 65, upwards of 70, 75 also there. So very similar range in general as far as Box Office Pro and Deadline, which happens from time to time. But normally you actually have a higher number being projected by Box Office Pro. At least I feel typically they go a little higher because they also account for not just what the studio is putting out there, what the studio is expecting, but also what social media and pre-sales and all these other factors going into it. So sometimes it is over what it should be, and sometimes it can be even on the money. But here's the update now from Deadline, and this is, again, devastating. So you're going into the weekend, $70 million. Even if the film had gotten to $70 million, that's still on the low side of things. Remember that would still be below the numbers of some of the worst performing DCEU movies. Even comparing it, for instance, to a film like Black Adam, you actually would have Black Adam performing better. Now, with this number coming in, we're talking about a movie that is going to be doing worse, not only ticket sales wise, because ticket sales, it was already going to do worse than the original Shazam movie, which I really like. I like the original Shazam film, but let's be honest, even if you like the film, that film was not a major hit at the box office, and it had a very slow, very low opening weekend because a lot of people did not know what it was, and word of mouth actually helped that film and propelled that film forward. We're seeing the opposite of that with The Flash. All right, so The Flash, if you remember from my review, I gave this film a C-, which I think was incredibly generous, and I think a lot of the reasons why I did not give this a flat-out F is because there were moments in the film that I thought were well directed. I thought that some of the pacing in the film worked well. Again, not all of it because it definitely feels long. I do think that a couple of the characters, like Michael Keaton's Batman, and also the girl that plays Kara, who plays Supergirl in the movie, I thought also did a very good job. But Ezra Miller's the lead, and he's not a leading man, and it's very clear in this movie. Not to mention all the controversy surrounding him. Not to mention the CGI in this movie being some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. And that's not just me being hyperbolic. You all know I am a huge stickler for CGI. I call it out in even movies that I really like, and especially, of course, in movies that I absolutely hate. This movie, for the cost of this movie, has literally the worst CGI I've ever seen. In cost to what we get, analysis, comparison, this is absolutely the worst. So again, it's not the worst on paper CGI that I've ever seen, but as far as the amount of money they put into this movie versus what we got, absolutely in that comparison, there's nothing worse at this point. And it's appallingly bad. It's offensively bad that they actually put this out. And the fact that the director came out and tried to argue that, that was done on purpose, makes it even worse. Because if the director of your movie is saying, instead of, saying, hey, I understand that you don't like it, I understand this, and we try to do everything that we could, and we're sorry that this happened. No, instead you go, it's supposed to be bad. And just, again, the concept of that just drives me nuts. And I know that he's trying to not, he's trying to support his movie. He's not trying to kneecap it. The issue is that the film does that already by itself. So many things were done to try to save this movie, to try to, launch this movie, and none of it worked. And this right here, I think, is a great example of that. So again, The Flash losing speed, according to Deadline, with $60 million 3-day opening. So remember, going into the weekend, $70 million. And Deadline had it between 70 and 75. So this film is now expected to make domestically $10 to $15 million less than what it was expected to. That is awful. That is really, really bad. And we'll show the comparisons of these new numbers and comparing it to some of the other DCEU movies. As it goes on to say, there are a lot of lessons to be learned this weekend, but chief among them is what it's like for a major motion picture studio to open a movie with largely a number of its cast, primarily its main star, not available to do press. Yes, again, there are so many issues surrounding this movie. That's the biggest looming question, which has been on everyone's minds in the wake of Ezra Miller's tabloid-laden 2020 to 2022 in regards to Warner Brothers DC's $200 million The Flash. Now remember, that $200 million is what's being reported, but there are some people, I think Valiant Renegade has gone on the record to say that he's heard it's closer to $300 million. I know that Tom from Midnight's Edge After Dark, shout out to Tom, was talking about this on the Salty Morning podcast as well, that he heard that it's actually, not even 300, but possibly even upwards of 400 because of how much damage they had to fix on this issue and because of how many years it took for them to actually get this film off the ground. I'm willing to be fair with it and say I think 220 to 250 in modeling charts is a fair thing until numbers actually get released. But the fact still remains is that even at that amount, right, even if you are the fairest you possibly could be, right, even if you are the most conservative to the point of absurdity that you can be, you're still looking at a movie that is not going to be able to reach anything close to a break-even point. We're talking here about catastrophic numbers, all right? And also, I'm going to call out Deadline here because let's just be honest. If all you can say about Ezra Miller's controversies is that it's tabloid-laden, that almost makes it sound like everything brought against him is not true, is false, is just for the tabloids, when there are serious allegations in there. There are serious allegations that are even still being litigated or still being at least investigated. So to simply say that it's tabloid quality, I just think is so disingenuous and is disgusting. So shame on you, Deadline, for labeling it in that way. Again, I don't think it's the point or the purpose of any news whatsoever to declare guilt or innocence in any case. But you always have to have the presumption of innocence. But you also still have to lay out the facts. And this is clearly coloring it with their own commentary. It goes on. The Flash, which isn't looking good with a 3-day around 60 million, off from the 75 million the studio was expecting. The studio is still expecting the Juneteenth holiday, a somewhat new national holiday for the record. Again, it's been in concept around forever, but as far as it being a national holiday, that is still relatively new. To deliver and get the film to 70 million over 4 days, so you need an extra day to get to the original amount you were thinking. And that also means that you are assuming this film is only going to get 10 million on Monday for a first Monday. That would not be very good, especially a holiday of all things. It goes on to say, if that's the case, that's the first time the federal holiday, which has not proven itself to be a big movie-going day yet because it's barely been around, come on, has yielded a daily gross for a movie north of 10 million. Last year, Universal's Jurassic World Dominion made only 8.6 million on the Juneteenth Monday holiday. The pick did 24.5 million yesterday, which includes Thursday previews. Other studios see these figures lower, given the $9.7 million previews. At a glance, it looked like Flash had the potential to over-deliver and beat its weekend estimates, and that's looking less likely now. Couldn't happen to a nicer movie, couldn't happen to a nicer studio in Warner Brothers, and this is abysmal. Now, again, I mentioned this earlier talking about the comparisons. So I talked about this chart on one of the Good Morning Asgard podcasts this week, and it was, okay, I've done the math, I've done the figuring on all of the DCEU movies, going back to the very beginning of Man of Steel. And I was talking about how even at the $70 million projections, the film was still expected to come in underneath the opening weekend ticket sales for the first Shazam movie, which were already on the lower side of things, especially when you compare it to other films in the franchise. With these new numbers, things are starting to get really, really bad. So again, $60 million opening weekend means because of the average ticket price being around $13, that's 4.6 million tickets. As a comparison, Shazam 2 made 2.3 million tickets. Black Adam, and here's, I think, kind of the nail in the coffin for this entire movie, the fact that Black Adam, which was a massive financial failure, a massive flop for DC and for Warner Brothers, had 6.4 million tickets back in 2022. So a 2 million ticket difference. When you adjust the opening weekend totals for inflation, you also get Black Adam coming in $15 million over what The Flash is expected to do. So the 3-day numbers, not talking the 4-day, the 3-day numbers. So if you add in the 4th day numbers, again, that number would still likely hold. But the fact remains The Flash is in a very precarious situation because now it's, again, Birds of Prey. Remember, Birds of Prey was completely atrocious, and in addition to that was impacted very heavily by the pandemic. That film had an opening weekend of 3.5 million tickets. So The Flash, a multi-million dollar, $100 million movie that they spent years and years and years developing, was meant originally to be the big event movie. And of course, since then has now just become the goodbye for several characters in the franchise, only open to what? A million more tickets? Roughly a million more tickets than Birds of Prey back in 2020? That is abysmal. When you are now in the same conversation as Birds of Prey, gosh awful, in addition to pandemic impacted, and you're only doing a million more tickets, oh boy, that's not good at all. That is awful. So anyway, hopefully that context brings further understanding as to just how bad these numbers actually are for this entire movie, for this entire franchise. And I don't see how they possibly recoup from this, because let's be honest, James Gunn, remember, when talking about this movie, said it was the best DC movie he's ever seen. Now, again, you don't want to kneecap your movie. You don't want to, you don't want to undersell or anything like that. You don't want to push people away early on. I understand that. I get that, right? People have to sell their movie. But for the new head of the DC universe, for the new person that's going to be pushing things, for him to go out of his way, not just to say that he enjoyed it or not just to commend the people, but to go out and say it is the best thing ever. Talk about a loss of any sense of credibility. Anyway, what say you? Let's go back into the chat now. 7:19 in the chat, 7:31 in real life. Again, I do fall 20 to 30 minutes behind in the chat. So let's dive into it. Automated Showman says, since you were on the topic of Tears of the Kingdom, which was your favorite temple boss? I honestly think I enjoyed the Goron, the Fire Temple boss the most. And I think it's because it was the one that made the most sense. Like, that was the one that I did not need nearly as much help trying to figure out. But they were all fun in different ways. I did like the Wind Temple. The Wind Temple was a lot of fun because that one also made a lot more sense too. And one of my least favorite ones was probably the Water Temple, because that one was just that one was just annoying. That's one I wish I had looked at a tutorial before doing it, because I ended up running out of like splash fruits, and if you don't have any sense or ability to create water in that other than just the power up you get during that entire mission, it's it ends up being very ugly very quickly. Then Otis Felicitas, what's going on, brother? Long time no see. Where you been? I missed you, man. I missed you too. Laura says, you can tell the studio knew Ezra couldn't carry the Flash movie based upon the large number of cameos. Yeah, this is very, very true. I think that's a great point. And also, think about the marketing. The marketing, I think, is actually the biggest indicator, because if you went into that movie based on the trailers, you thought you were getting a Flash Batman, adventure movie, kind of, right? The Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman's in it, and he has a fair amount of screen time, but it's definitely not co-lead. So it's clear that when they filmed everything, that they understood he was going to be a supporting character. But in the marketing, they would make you think it very differently. And I think they knew that, hey, if we have any chance and any hope of getting anyone to see this movie, we need more Michael Keaton. And so let's go ahead and put the vast majority of cuts from his scenes into this trailer to try to get everyone in. Gary Banjo says, Worthington, CGI was trash in Flash. Oh, it was awful. It was some of the worst CGI, as I said, as far as the actual amount of money spent on the movie, and it likely was even higher than what they're saying. Based on that and the quality of the CGI, it is the worst CGI that I've ever seen for that price. Rob D says, hello, Odin, just got in. How's the new Office? 2023 looks like it's going to be another 2011 for the box office. Harry Potter made money in 2011, but not much else. Yeah, and this is, I believe, it was Valiant Renegade who was going to be talking about how this could potentially be the worst box office weekend in the summer. Not necessarily of all time, but in a very long time, one of the worst summer box offices, because you have a film like The Flash coming in underneath what was expected, Elemental from Disney, Pixar. And get this, everybody, a Disney Pixar movie making $30 million or even less than $30 million in its opening. So you have two major studios with two major pictures that are both set to flop. And so you take that into account that these are the two biggest new movies and they're all coming in underneath what was expected. It's going to be awful. Jenna Winkster, I recently bought Twilight Princess HD for a ridiculously high price. I hate that it and Wind Waker HD are still stuck on the Wii U. Have you played either one? I've not played either one, actually. I've heard great things, or I've heard good things about Twilight Princess. I've heard some things about Wind Waker, not nearly as much. But I will say this, General Winkster, instead of buying that game for a high price, you probably would have done better to get one of these retro handheld emulators. You know, I have the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, and it can play N64 games. It can play even, older systems too. But you can get some of these now that can play and emulate those systems, and you can play Twilight Princess with one of those systems. So that's actually on my list of things to things to play through. But I would recommend going that route instead. But I've been wanting to play those, and so that's something that I might try to do since I do have a couple of retro handhelds that I think could handle it. Thanatos says, how does inflation affect a movie like this that was in development for years? Thanatos, that's a great question because, the production budget that we have, I would actually ask the question, back when the film was first being made, what was the expected production budget? Because if they say anything close to $200 million, that's when we know as a fact there's no way this movie only cost $200 million, right? So, it makes it a lot more complicated. But I would say, if anything, it means that the film and the number that we're being given has to be valued as higher than 200. And so that's why I think you've seen some people who have said that it costs 220. But I think in that case, if that's being said because of inflation, not necessarily because of anything they've been told by the studio, I think at that point you have to say, okay, I don't think you're really accounting for inflation the way that you should with the number of years that this film has actually taken to be made. And that's why when people say and throw out numbers like $300 million production budget, I have to say it would make sense to me. It would definitely make sense to me with everything that we got. Let's see. Tina says, Juneteenth is celebration of the destruction of slavery. It started out as a Texas-only holiday. And for some reason, the federal government decided to pick up on that. That's what it is. Yeah, and what's interesting, too, is I believe that historically, if you actually look to the history of the United States, that weren't there still some states that had it? So basically that the day that Juneteenth, celebrates and memorializes is actually not even true because there was still slavery even, on that date historically. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I could have sworn that I've heard people say, actually it's not even correct because it still existed. Awesome one. What's going on? Welcome back. Tina, thank you very much for the happy Father's Day. Let us see. Rob D. tried to say, how David Zaslav has been able to keep his job at Warner Brothers is now a bigger question than how Kathleen Kennedy has been able to keep her job at Lucasfilm. And Rob D., I think that's kind of going to be the biggest question going into the summer. Continuing to go through the summer is how do these people keep their jobs? Because with Warner Brothers now having a film in The Flash costing as much as it did, expected to lose as much money as it is expected to lose, how do they justify keeping these people on? And then on the Disney side of it, right now the numbers going into Indiana Jones look pretty bad. And after the performance here from The Flash, do not be surprised if the projections for Indiana Jones drop even further. And everything going for that movie right now is bad. Think about how early did they release that movie for people and critics to be able to go see. And you don't do that unless you are confident that the film is going to be well received. And guess what? It wasn't. Then you allow those reviews to come out. So now people are going to have like well more than a month, it seems, going into the film, having negative view and negative press against it. Add to that a massive budget. Add to that all of the other decisions that they have made that have made the numbers for the any box office potential that it has essentially fly out the window. And you have to also start to ask that question too of, okay, how in the world can they justify keeping on any of the producers, any of the people behind these things, right? It's just crazy. Abomination over on Odyssey tried to say, yes, the Union states still own slaves until the 13th Amendment. Interesting. Okay. So that is where it becomes, I think, an issue for me, because then it's like, okay, then it's not the actual historical date. So, I guess is the justification that these states were not once again a part of the Union, or again, I'm not an expert when it comes to history, but it certainly sounds like a holiday was created that, again, great sentiment, because it's definitely a good thing for us to celebrate when people were no longer being used as property, right? It's good that we've moved away from that and to celebrate the ending of that. But when it's something to where it's like, wait, if I can easily just do a quick Google search and find out, oh, this date is actually not even true, the whole spirit of this date's not even true, then okay, there's a problem there. Abomination adds on to say, the plot really thickens when you think about it. Yes. And the fact that, again, if it's a state holiday, right, if it's something where a state is celebrating it individually, that makes more sense, because it's saying, hey, a state is recognizing this is when it stopped in our state, this is when it stopped at our level, so we will celebrate, we will commemorate that. That makes a lot more sense to me. But then, yeah, when someone takes it on at the federal level, at the national level, and then turns it into, right, like a huge campaign thing or a huge political thing, it becomes a major problem, right? It starts to be like, okay, now what you're doing is you're politicizing something that in the federal zone does not make any sense whatsoever. So anyway, Keely Chow tagged to say, David Zaslav, Henry Schleif, Tom Cosgrove need to go because Discovery Family Channel has been a disaster since October 13th, 2014. Hashtag Discovery Family sucks. Hashtag and Discovery Family. It's been bad. And again, the worst, the biggest box office losers, especially since the pandemic era, have been who? Warner Brothers and Disney. They have been easily the biggest losers. And it might surprise some people, but Warner Brothers has probably been an even bigger loser in many respects and in many ways, because up until recently, Disney did still have some properties that were able to at least make enough money to, not make massive profits, but enough money to, be able to write off the losses or something to that effect. Warner Brothers has never really had that, especially since the pandemic started. It really started to get really bad for them, more so than anyone else, because their bigger content, their bigger stories were losing. Disney's now starting to catch up to that. And because Disney has so many projects that cost so much money, they might be able to catch up rather quickly. But it's not been good. It's not been good. Jonah Winkster says, it's okay, Odin. Every water temple in the Zelda series is usually the worst one in their specific games. I will say this, though. Playing the water temple itself, I don't remember it being that terrible as far as the figuring out of the water temple. But the boss was definitely frustrating. But that's just me. Titan, what's going on? Welcome back. Forever Sci-Fi, who's a member, says, I do wonder if Warner Brothers and Disney are outsourcing more and more of the CGI to companies in India. When companies start cutting costs, that's always the go-to solution. Never turns out well. But that's what just drives me crazy, Forever Sci-Fi, because then it has to make you ask the question, where is the money going? Because if the visual effects are being outsourced, and that is to explain why they look terrible, then how do they still have a budget of 200 plus million? And obviously a lot of people could go down a lot of different conspiracy rabbit holes about where the money's actually going. But I just think, to me, I just would not be surprised if they're spending the money, even if they're not outsourcing it, they're just spending a lot of money and overpaying for the product that they're actually getting. It's something that where they're clearly not caring about being efficient, clearly not caring about being effective in their delivery or anything like that. General Winkster, but that's just the thing, though. What I'm talking about are actual physical emulators. So again, it's software emulation, but it's physical buttons. And it's really, really good. And you can actually even get controllers that match certain systems with some of these emulators. Dan Blackroy tagged to say, how much more will it take before people start to boycott Disney, HBO Max, like Disney Plus? Are either company really worth a dollar given to them? Well, again, I think this is the big question, Dan Blackroy, but also I think a lot of people are starting to do that, are already doing that. I mean, that's the reason why you're seeing a loss in numbers, a loss in subscribers for so many of these streaming services now. because a lot of people just don't really feel like the value's there, especially as more and more streaming services start to come to the fold and as the prices for them start to increase as well. More and more people are going to say, okay, I can't have all of these streaming services because this is just too much. And then you'll have to start cutting somewhere. And then people will actually have to start saying what actually gives me the best return for my investment, what has the best value proposition for me. And for some people that might be Netflix, for some people that might be Max. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think we're already seeing that to a certain degree. Frank G. trying to say, which Pixar movie started that studio's downward spiral? I think it has to be Cars 2, which should have been direct to video. No, Frank G, I would actually say, I actually did a full breakdown of the Pixar, the Disney Pixar history, and as far as, general trends, but actually it would not have been Cars. The Cars franchise was a bad choice for sure. But as far as overall value, the first flop for them, the actual official first flop for them was The Good Dinosaur in 2015. The Good Dinosaur lost about $100 million. After that, Cars 3 lost $40 million. But in between those films, so in between The Good Dinosaur and Cars 3, you had Finding Dory. Finding Dory made about $400 million in net profit. It made $1.3 billion worldwide. So that's why when I look at Disney's problems, honestly, I think the biggest problems for them started with films like Lightyear, and also, for Disney as an entire company would also include Strange World. But really, I think that as far as financial troubles for them, when it actually started, Lightyear would have been the first. Because some people could go back to Onward, but remember, Onward got heavily impacted because it came out the weekend before everything shut down. So, of course, its numbers were going to be impacted. Not to say that it was tracking well, because it wasn't tracking all that well. However, that is still a factor, and that still needs to be taken into account. But really, Lightyear was the first one that really showed, okay, now they've lost the family. Because, again, before Onward, even Toy Story 4, which I've been very critical of, Toy Story 4 2019, $400 million in net profit, roughly $1.3 billion. Again, these are adjusted numbers here. The year before that, Incredibles 2, $1.5 billion worldwide. So, yeah, Lightyear, though, that was really the first. And it all stems back, and I've said this constantly before, it all stems back to what was going on in Disney around the time Lightyear came out. Disney was getting involved in Florida politics. Disney was speaking out against the fakely named Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and videos were being leaked showing executives and behind-the-scenes people at Disney saying, yes, we're going to put this crap into our movies and into our projects. Add all of that together with pandemic stuff, you lose families, right? At this point, remember, Lightyear was 2022, so everything is fully opened. There's no excuses in that department, which means all you're left with is what is keeping families from going to see these movies. And I think a lot of it stems from general disinterest, of course, but a big part of it, I think, too, is families saying, keep my kids away from this garbage. Because with Lightyear losing $188 million, roughly, and some people probably would actually have the number closer to $200 million. So again, we're talking a massive, massive flop for Disney there. Elemental is also expected to have another massive flop as well. So it's not looking good for them whatsoever. And it's going to be bad. But yeah, I would say Lightyear was probably the actual start of their downfall as far as consistent stuff. Oh man, people are posting their times in the chat. I don't know what that's referring to, but I'll have to go and check that out. Anyway, Automated Showman, thank you for tagging at 743. And if it is a comfort for anyone, remember that Aquaman 2 is going to be released. Now, Automated Showman, I will say this much, because it was mentioned in a previous stream, I think it was the Salty Nerd podcast, and I wanted to say something, but I just didn't have the time. But ultimately, remember this. Aquaman 1 is the only DCEU movie. DCEU. So don't you try to bring up Joker. Don't you try to bring up The Dark Knight, etc. Those are not DCEU movies. Those are DC movies. Those are Warner Brothers movies, but they're not a part of this large universe. The only DCEU movie to make $1 billion was the first Aquaman movie. Now, does that guarantee Aquaman 2? No. But what it does help to indicate is that that franchise clearly had something going into its release that was different in some way versus all the others. So I would say this. I'm not saying that film is going to make $1 billion, and I'm not saying that it's going to be financially successful. What I am saying is don't sleep on it. Just like when Black Panther Wakanda Forever came out, I was saying, all right, I don't think the film's going to do very well worldwide, but don't sleep on that domestic. And sure enough, I think domestically that film did a lot better than anyone had expected. It didn't do nearly as much as what was seen with the first film, but still, you don't sleep on that when you see certain trends. Because what happened? The first Black Panther movie had one of the highest domestic totals of the entire MCU. All right, it's up there. I think it's in at least the top 5 domestic totals for the entirety of the MCU, which is again very, very good. And so I look at a film like Aquaman and I say, look, I don't think the film's going to be a massive hit, but I would not be surprised. Tell me how I'm wrong. I would not be surprised if Aquaman ends up being a much bigger success versus The Flash. And you can even just simply have it as Jason Momoa versus Ezra Miller. There are people who are generic fans of these movies who are not nearly going to see them in the same volume as they were previously. But I know that they exist, right? These normies out there who will go see most of these big budget films. And if they decided to not go see this movie because of Ezra Miller, I think that they would be a heck of a lot more likely to go see a movie because of Jason Momoa. Again, I'm not saying that Jason Momoa is a box office draw. I'm not saying that he's going to bring in tons of money. What I am saying is that I think even anyone would have to admit that objectively speaking, who would be a better box office draw? Who would you rather have marketing your movie? I hope as a fact, people would say the vast majority would have to say Jason Momoa clearly would be a better person because at least he can market your movie, whereas they could not have Ezra Miller doing any type of press whatsoever. So I think by that factor alone, and based on how low these numbers are right now for Flash, it would not surprise me to see Aquaman 2 do better than what people expecting. I don't think it's going to do great, but it would not surprise me if it did better. Bianca Zombie hanging out over on Rumble. Thanks for being here. Abomination tagged to say, I wouldn't even know that Disney got involved if it weren't for the Fellowship channels commenting on it. I was never interested in Lightyear because they didn't have Tim Allen, which would mean that the toy character of our beloved movies was actually a cheap knockoff with a different voice. And that's why it is several reasons. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say the only reason why that movie failed was because of politics. I just think it was the heaviest factor. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, who heard that trailer and said, yeah, that ain't Tim Allen. That's not Buzz Lightyear. No, thank you. So I think there was a ton of factors that led to the movie not doing well. But I think the heaviest one was them getting involved in politics, and especially those videos getting leaked. Because it was this perfect storm of events that happened that all pointed to Disney being a company run by a bunch of creepos, and that has a very powerful impact. Especially because, remember, what films do they have being released that are doing the worst out of all of them? MCU films are typically doing a lot better than their animated films. And what does that tell us? That tells us families are not going to see those movies. That family audience that they had in the bag for so long, clearly they don't have them anymore. Your average Patriot nerd, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Let's see. Quatrina VR WW Pro pointed out that Disney is likely making a mistake by moving Thunderbolts movie to the 2024 Christmas week. It's gonna put it head to head with Sonic 3 and may get very embarrassed. Yeah, and you know what? I do not think that Sonic 3 is gonna be a movie that is going to embarrass anyone. As far as box office, head-to-head box office are concerned. Because what sometimes people forget is that though I think that it's not outside of the realm of possibility for that to happen, especially since Thunderbolts, I don't really know a lot about Thunderbolts. That's just not something that I have a firm concept on. But what I do know is the Sonic box office. And though the film has done so much better than what anyone would have expected, especially the first movie, right? After the first trailer, everyone thought, okay, this movie's dead in the water. And then what happened? The director actually listened to the fans and the rest is history. But what people seem to forget, I think sometimes, is that these were not major giant budget, rather these were not giant, box office hits, right? So if you look at the chart here, the first Sonic film adjusted using the numbers figuring is $330 million. And it did increase, it did improve in Sonic 2 to $400 million. But for me, I know I'm not a fan of either of these movies. Personally, I think Sonic 1 is better than Sonic 2. I know there were a lot of people who did enjoy both of these movies. I just do not think they have been able to add to their audience. I don't think they've been able to grow their audience to such a degree that it's going to be any type of major box office contender. So, yeah, but let me put it this way. Agreeing with WW Pro to a certain point, if Thunderbolts, if any MCU movie is doing Sonic numbers or less, that's really, really bad. Because Sonic numbers are great for Sonic. When you have a $100 million budget, $400 million, $300 million, hey, that's pretty darn good. You're getting a decent return on your investment there, right? But when you're a Marvel movie and you cost $200+ million and you're only making, and theoretically you're only making $400 million, no. That would not be good. That would not be good at all. But anyway, hopefully that adds a little context there. Joe Winkster says, leave me alone. I paid more because I wanted to Wolf Link amiibo. I have needs. Don't come at me. Yeah, I was hearing about how you couldn't get Wolf Link with that amiibo. Rob D says, Disney seems to be the type that buys an $1,800 iPhone instead of a $400 general smartphone that has all the same functionality just because. Or, yeah, you could also say it's the person that is a Samsung user because Samsung is the Apple of Android, and they end up buying the expensive flip phone. I think Gary did that. Automated Showman. The Cars franchise was profitable for Disney, for Pixar, due to the toys and merchandising, something which I think is severely lacking in recent years. Yeah, a lot of people always mention merchandising and toy sales. The issue that I have with that is I would need to actually have raw data in front of me to actually be able to confirm that that is actually the case. For instance, in the case of Cars 3, I could theoretically believe it because it was only about a $40 million loss. And so that to me makes sense. Yeah, you could sell that amount of money in merchandising and stuff. But when you talk about films like Lightyear, right, or some of the films more recently that have been major flops, Little Mermaid, for instance, some people said, well, what about, all the different toys and all the merchandising stuff? It's like, when you have a film losing $100+ million, I don't see how merchandising makes up for it. Again, I don't know enough about that subject to say so for sure, but I always hear people mention it, but I don't think it necessarily has, as much effectiveness. The more you have as a financial loss, box office wise, the less impact that has. That's pretty straightforward, but I think it just had to be said. Okay, I see what people are doing. So because I said, hey, it's 7:58 right now, and it's X time in the chat. So Joseph was saying 1:47 in Hawaii. Hey, well, thank you for being here from Hawaii. And then Quatrina was saying 6:48 in Louisiana. Gotcha. Makes more sense now. Robert E. says, while I agree Disney going against Florida was the reason Lightyear flopped, I think Disney heavily devalued Pixar by releasing 3 Pixar movies between Onward and Lightyear straight to Disney+. Oh, for sure, Rob D. That's why I said there's many factors that have led to that, but the issue there is they don't have a robust streaming collection, right? Or they don't have a robust streaming audience. You're not seeing these massive growths in their streaming, right? Where their box office numbers are decreasing by quite a bit. And it's usually, and again, look at their kids-specific content versus their teen to adult audience content. You're seeing a lot more heavy losses in the kids' content than anything else. And if it were true that those losses are there because they're making it up in streaming, you would see it made up in streaming, but we're not really seeing that. There's no data really to suggest that that's happening. Quatrina says, Toy Story 4 was a disappointment for that franchise, though left some people unhappy with Pixar, breaking up Woody and Buzz's friendship, and suddenly having Bonnie hated her beloved cowboy doll. I mean, Toy Story 4 has a lot of problems. First off, there's the retcon of Bo Peep's character, which is just, okay, it's so on the surface, you're like, oh, I see what you did there, and I know why you did it, Disney. Okay, stupid. To me, one of the worst parts, when you mentioned the breakup of Woody and Buzz's friendship, really it all stems from what was done in I was going to say Breaking Bad 2, but in Ralph Breaks the Internet, right? I have a video up criticizing that movie and describing why it's one of the worst movies ever made. And the reason why is because in both that movie and in Toy Story 4, what is the lesson that's being taught to kids? The lesson is you can leave your friends, you can leave your family. All you have to care about is yourself. And I know that might be some people out there that have a libertarian mindset or have a more individualistic mindset. But think about the lesson that teaches. It doesn't matter, and here's where the problem is. It's teaching, it doesn't matter what impact your leaving has on anybody. So even if it hurts the people that you're leaving, that doesn't matter. The reason why that's a terrible message to kids is because that's where we get feminism from, right? Hey, if you are going to be happy by leaving your family, think about it was a third or fourth wave feminism. If you leave your family to go pursue a career, so we're not talking about people who are being at home or people who are raising families and kids working. We're talking about people. This happened a lot in the 60s, especially right during the whole quote unquote sexual revolution. Women abandoning their families to go off and pursue a career because hey, it would make them happy. That was the kind of crap that was being taught in Ralph Breaks the Internet and in Toy Story 4 was, hey, it doesn't matter if in the case of that movie, you actually had a character leaving a game, which meant that the game very likely would be shut down and shut off. So literally, hey, yeah, the whole world's going to fall apart by you leaving. But that's what it was supporting, saying, oh, all that matters is your individual rights, and all that matters is your individual happiness. And forgetting a very key thing. Yes, individual, freedom is important. But individual freedom at the sake of other people's freedom, at the sake of other people's happiness, that's where you start to see that line get crossed. Because whether we like to admit it or not, our actions do not only have an individual consequence, they also, because of the fact that we are social by nature, have a social consequence. They impact those around us. And that is, I think, ultimately why films like that are just gosh awful. Terrible messages to kids. Let's see. Quatrina tagged to say Elemental has a non-binary character with they them pronouns. Are you? Well, add another reason as to why that film's gonna flop. Keely Chow. Kathleen Kennedy to Lucasfilm is what Jerry Jones is to the Dallas Cowboys. He needs to step down and hire a real general manager who knows how to build a winning football team. I don't know enough about football to say whether or not that's true or not, but I'll take your word for it. Quatrina says Aquaman 1 made that billion off of Jason Momoa's abs, and hey. Maybe he's able to do it again. I'm not saying it is going to happen, but it'll be interesting. Undead Nerd, out of all the upcoming MCU projects, regardless of what everyone else thinks, has a chance of doing well, I'd say Deadpool. Out of all of them, Deadpool probably has the best chance as far as films that are coming out more, or coming out sooner rather than later. Yeah, I would say Deadpool absolutely has probably the best chance of being successful, mostly because those films tend to cost a lot less money. And because I feel there's a built-in audience for that movie, probably has a better chance. Neil tagged to say, I'm not seeing Flash. It's not just because of Ezra Miller. I'm sick of Member Berry's multiverse stuff. Spider-Verse, the exception. Been rewatching older good movies like The Mask of Zorro. I mean, member berries in movies are not bad. Those are not the problem. The member berries are not the problem. Is when the member berries are used at the expense of story. So when you have no story or you have a bad story and then you have member berries, then the member berries don't do anything. That's what The Flash is, right? The Flash is a terrible movie that has some member berries, that has some cameos in it, mostly all CGI. So therefore you have already the execution being poorly done. And so you have that going on, but the story around it's not good. Whereas in Spider-Man No Way Home, even if you didn't like the movie, you would still have to admit that the story is decent, the story is passable, the story works. The story, absolutely, you could point out issues with it for sure. But it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad story. And so because of that, the member berries actually help to elevate everything. So people walked out of that movie saying, this movie was phenomenal. This movie was fantastic. If you were to take those cameos and those, callbacks out, the movie would not be nearly as strong. But there's enough of a foundation. Basically, you need to have at least some of a foundation present for member berries to have any effect whatsoever. If you have little to no foundation, Doesn't matter who you have in it. Doesn't matter who's going to be in it. It's not going to be enough. Anyway, back into the chats. Let's see here. Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father. Just made it home from North Dakota. What's up with the new background? Well, clearly someone didn't read the title of the video. It's a new office, Father. It's a new office. If you were here at the very beginning, if you were on time, instead of going off to take classes, about teaching, a teacher being taught, disgusting. Patui, I spit in you. I spit at your direction. I love you, Father. All in good fun. Miss Minnesota fan, those Little Mermaid dolls are hideous. Yeah. What I do think is hilarious is that there are now plenty of comments and memes and pictures being shared about how this upcoming movie about the teenage Kraken has a clear ripoff of Ariel, because in that movie, Krakens are good and mermaids are evil, and the main mermaid, the main bad, is an Ariel ripoff. And I'm like, that's actually really, really funny and very appropriate for this time. Is it going to have or make any type of splash? I doubt it, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. All right, let's go ahead and jump back into some other box office news. Actually, no, before that, let me talk a little bit about, before anything else, I actually want to push this real quick because we're very, very close on this campaign. So, for those that follow me on Friday Night Tights, you know that we recently launched the next set of plushies. So this is the Crusader plush. This is Templar Odin. Templar Odin plushie. This is available for 13 more days. So 13 more days. But as you can see, the goal is 200. We're at 189. So if you have not been able to get your plushie, if you like plushies, whatever it is, again, I don't want to force or pressure anybody to do that, so that's why once we talk about this, we will quickly move on. But if you have not gotten one and you're interested in one, go check out Makeship, and I would very greatly appreciate it. Because once we get to 200, it means that it absolutely will go into production, and that you will receive one. It'll get made. And anything after that will just be bonus. Anyway, thank y'all for that. But I did want to talk about another topic, which is Babylon 5. So Babylon 5, as you all know, for those that have been watching, that I've been waiting for the summer to finally delve into this story. I've never seen Babylon 5 before. Last summer, as y'all might recall, I was watching DS9, had really no knowledge of Star Trek. I've seen a handful of episodes, probably more than a couple of dozen episodes, to be honest, of Star Trek Next Generation, but hadn't really seen much else. So that was until last summer. Last summer, I was finally able to watch DS9, and DS9 was fantastic. It was great. It did not take me a long time to get into the show, to get attached to the characters, and it was a lot of fun talking about that experience with y'all last summer. So, of course, as soon as I even started talking about this series, when I first started it, I had a lot of people asking consistently, what about Babylon 5? You should watch Babylon 5 next. You should watch Babylon 5 next. You should watch Babylon 5. And I'm like, look, I'm going to get through this series first, and then maybe I'll be able to get to Babylon 5, but I probably won't have time. And sure enough, we're now in the next summer, and I finally have the time. Being a teacher, summertime is the time that I can finally get things done. And so I'm finally actually watching this show. I've just started the third season. And what I will say is this. Firstly, Captain Sheridan has grown on me quite a bit. Didn't take very long. Very, very solid acting from the actor, from Bruce Boxleitner, playing the character of Captain Sheridan. So that has been great. I warmed up to him very, very quickly. For those that maybe it's been a while, remember that Commander Sinclair was the head honcho of Babylon 5 in season 1. The actor then left the show because of mental health reasons, and then we had Captain Sheridan take over. And of course, I was kind of upset by that because I really liked Sinclair. I liked the actor that played Sinclair a lot, but hey, I understand why he did what he did, and the fact that his mind was especially on the show, saying I did not want to hold back or hold down the show because of what I was dealing with. I'm like, hey, kudos to you. That's very good self-awareness, and I appreciate it. So one of the things I love about season 2, so I guess spoiler for anyone who's maybe watching this along with me or, wants to watch it at some point and doesn't want to know anything. It's I think it's not a major plot spoiler, for instance, at this point. But 3, 2, 1, I love the episode when Sinclair comes back. So there's one episode where you have a video, and it is Commander Sinclair calling back to the station, talking to, I forgot who he was initially talking to, but it was just really nice to see that actor back, to see the character of Sinclair back. And so even though it's just a very small moment, very brief moment, the fact that they acknowledge that he still exists, right? So they don't kill him off screen, at least not at this point, and that he came back that one time, I don't know, it just made me very happy to see that happen. The one thing that I'm kind of mixed on, because I don't know where it's going, is my general thoughts on the character of Londo. So kind of going into the series, I was really enjoying especially the character of Londo, especially the way he says, Mr. Garibaldi, like he was just very fun. He was also a jerk, right? So that was great. But he's had such a dark character turn over the course of season 2. You get to the point where you're like, oh man, Londo is just despicable. Londo is just, he's a scumbag. And I didn't like that direction, because the guy and the way the character is presented early on, it's the one that you kind of need to have, and it's nice to have for that comic relief, right? To have for that, for getting that, that enjoyment out of it. And so it's kind of hit me on this, it kind of hit me across the head. I was just like, oh, I was not kind of expecting that to happen to the character, right? For him to kind of go through that dark turn. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying that I hate it. I'm just saying that I don't know how to feel about it yet. So, some things are happening right now. I'm in the first episode of season 3, and there's already things happening with his character, maybe showing some change here. I just want there to be some balance to it, because when you go from a very fun-loving guy to completely despicable in, I don't think, a very long period of time, it was, it was a little tough. But in general, I'm still loving the series. The one thing that the Londo fall helps with, though, is it allowed the actor that played Jakar to just freaking nail it. I mean, he has just been on fire. End of season 2 especially, he has some of the best moments, I think, acting-wise, when you're seeing his heart break over what's happening to his people, what's happening to his planet. It's just the actor, the fact that, and this goes to show you how far Hollywood today has also fallen, right? The fact that he, behind the makeup, behind the prosthetic, is still able to give this incredible performance that you feel, it makes you ask the question of why in the heck is any studio pushing for this crap CGI that somehow ends up costing more and doesn't look nearly as good, and then also hides, in many cases, the performances that are being given by their actors. So, again, shout out to the actor that plays Jakar. And, again, I am still very, very much enjoying this series. Loving it. All right. Back into the chat. And as I mentioned also, I last summer learned how to make rosaries while I was watching DS9. And so I've continued that, and so now I've become a lot more proficient with it. So I've made a ton of rosaries since watching Babylon 5. So it's been great. I think I've been able to make at least 1 to 2 on average, 1 to 2 per episode. So 3 seasons or 2 full seasons in, it's been pretty good. Let's see. Quatrina says, kind of like mermaids in mythology who lured sailors to their deaths. I know, right? Almost like they're portraying mermaids as they have almost always been portrayed, except until Disney's Little Mermaid original animated. Kimberly G says, I got my plushie on order. He's adorable. Thank you, Kimberly G. I really do appreciate that. I think I shouted you out on Twitter. Miss Midazaga fan, thank you. I appreciate it. You're awesome. Jonah Winkster, sorry, Odin, I don't buy plushies because I'm an adult and not a man baby. Just don't mention amiibos. They are completely different and don't count. Exactly. It's because amiibos are for men. Amiibos are for manly men. Ambrose Chamber Pot, yeah, you could argue DS9 has a lot of filler in it, but there is good filler and there's bad filler, because basically filler in a show where the characters are so good, you don't mind seeing them do mundane tasks, that's a good show. And I feel like that's what the filler in DS9 is. You're like, yeah, you're not doing anything really, very innovative, but you know what? The characters have been so well established, I don't mind watching you do this. And Babylon 5, I think, also has done a very good job of developing their characters. Again, I still have some questions, and I still have some concerns about Londo's character development, but let's see. Your average patron nerd. The Office looks good. Now you just need to add a few of your favorite movie posters. Yes, I know. We're still working on it. So again, there will still be changes, but this past week on Friday, my wife is now able to take Fridays off. It's this new thing that certain companies are doing. Maybe you're at a company or you know someone who's at a company that's starting this where it's like take your own day or something like that, where instead of it being a 5-day work week, it's a 4-day work week. It's because there's apparently been a lot of studies shown. And, who would have thunk, right? Having that extra day means a lot, helps with mental health, helps also with work proficiency and such. But anyway, so with that, they're taking Fridays, which is nice. But because of that, we were able to get some stuff moved and everything. She's much more great when it comes to design. I'm terrible with it. So if you need me to move something from point A to point B, I can do that. I'm not that I'm like excessively strong or anything like that, but I'm muscle, right? So I can, move stuff around. But if you ask me to design or ask me to coordinate something or to measure something, no, that's not my strong suit. I've never been good at that whatsoever. And so my wife's definitely been helping with the overall look of the room. But yeah, this is going to be an office/media center. So the TV that I have out there, because we're going to turn the area outside. So this used to be the kitchen, actually. This used to be a kitchen downstairs that's been now turned into an office. So my old office is going to become Baby Thor's room, because we got to make room in the nursery upstairs for baby girl coming in September. So my old office is going to become Baby Thor's room. So we're going to get that renovated a little bit probably too. And so because of that, we want to turn the outside space into like a play area. And right now that's where like the TV, the 4K player, and all that media stuff is. So some of that's going to be moving in here. So like the TV will be in here, the 4K player. Some of the stuff will still remain out there too, because this is not a very large space. But yeah, I'll have a TV mounted on the wall here. And that's why we have the chair, and why I'm very excited about it. And right now you can't see it. Let me see if I can hide it without messing everything up. Because as you all know, I like to do things live here, and let me see. So this is the ticker. Can I hide it? No. Okay. Let me see if I can figure this out. If I can't figure it out, then I apologize. But let me see if I can. Maybe if I just hide this, so you can see her legs right now. But literally, she's just staring. She's not staring. She's asleep. She's passed out. But it's as if she were staring. Anyway, let me see. Is it this? No, it's not that. Oh, well, I tried. I did my best, but I could not figure it out. But anyway, it's really cute. It's really, really cute. I love it. Maybe I'll have to reposition certain things so that way if she's ever sleeping like that again, y'all can see. Let's see. Anyway, Rage Grifter, wasn't he an alcoholic or drug addict? Yeah, I don't know what exactly, because I did not dive into what the mental health issue was, but I know that there were some issues going on. Quatrina and my wife had explained it as being mental health, and normally for her to say that, it would have to be mental health and not substance necessarily. Quatrina VR, the wall color looks great behind you. Thank you. I appreciate that. As I said, the one issue is that I can't do my color lights because it just doesn't work. But one of the things that my wife is going to be working on is trying to figure out placement for like LED strips. So that will be a way I can keep the color schemes going. Automated Showman, just heading to celebrate an ordination anniversary. Have a blessed rest of your day and happy Father's Day. Thank you, Automated Showman. I appreciate that. And yeah, have a great time at the ordination anniversary. General Winkster, Sheridan is my goat for the show. Also, be careful when you eventually get to season 5 because it gets weird. Yeah, my wife has told me season 5 is where things start to fall off the rails quite a bit, and that because of that, she was flying through it because she wanted to watch it before I did so that she could give me some warnings, give me some heads up on certain things. And And also because she wants to be watching it around the same time that I am, but because we have different schedules, it becomes that much more difficult because she knows summer, right? I can just fly through episodes relatively quickly when she's working. So because of that, she said, though, that she got to season 5 and it's like she hit a brick wall. So she's like flying through everything and then it got to season 5 and things slow down quite a bit. Bruce says, I love the morally gray characters when done well. Yeah, same here. I do too. But for him, I just feel like, to me, it's almost too dark of a character turn. Father Miller says, okay, got to run. Youth retreat kicks off tonight, and I got to go over and greet the team. Later, y'all. Hey, have a great retreat, Father. Another summer, welcome back. Let's see. Quatrina, because they get to exert control, they can deep fake over any problematic actor if they want. Yeah, it's kind of scary to think about where technology is going, you know? Let's see. Abomination. I see the sorry habit from before. Yeah, I appreciate it, man, because I do try to. It's not like I'm trying to hold people to the standard, but it's my only way of really knowing of whether or not you want me to actually read something. So I appreciate the tag, though. It says, well, I know a company. Actually, get this way. Well, I know a company that's been pretty banger for my job. I don't know if they do regular customer business. They're called FlexFire LED. FlexFire LED? FlexFire Fire LED? Fire LED? Did I miss that? I apologize if I did. For sci-fi, Jakar and Londo make the show. I'll be interested in hearing your reaction to episode 4 from season 3, Passing Through Gethsemane. Is that the Catholic episode? My wife says that there's a Catholic episode, and when I asked for details, she said, you'll just know. Which to me is a very apropos comment for some of the characters in Babylon 5, because they have that happen with them. When people ask, how will I know? You'll know. You will know. It'll be obvious. So, all right. Let's see. Your average Patriot nerd who's a member says, the triple episode from DS9 is one of my favorites. Worf had the best moment when he comments about how Klingons look different in Kirk's era. Yes, I remember the one you're talking about. The reason why I love that episode is the way they cut the new modern, again, for the time, modern actors into the old scenes is really good. Like, works really well. It's not flawless necessarily, but let me just put it this way. The visual effects that are used to make it look like those characters from DS9 are actually on the ship with, Shatner and the others work so seamlessly, especially when you compare it to any of the crap that we have nowadays. It's like night and day. Let me put it this way. If you watch The Flash, there are 2 Barry Allens on screen for a huge portion of the movie. There are certain sequences where they are clearly using complete CGI renderings of Ezra's face, and it looks abysmal. It looks awful. So it's amazing how DS9, as long ago as that show was on, and as dated as that technology is, was able to make things like that look so much better than what The Flash could do with well of a higher budget. Let's see. Abomination over on Odyssey clarified as an LED lights. Gotcha. They do LED strip lights for buildings that basically LEDs on a strip of tape. Oh, okay. Nice. Very, very cool. Nice. Oh, so y'all have used them in the past. FlexFire LED. Okay, gotcha. Well, thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate it. I think we were kind of going to go find online somewhere because I don't really need a expensive or fancy things. Kelly Chow, it sounds like Geeks and Gamers is officially expanding to Tennessee with you being in charge of Geeks and Gamers Tennessee. What? When did that happen? Was that joked about? Because that is news to me. Where are you getting your sources? Where are you getting your information? You tell me right now. I want to speak to your manager. Hannibal Grimm, guess what we screened at my work today? I don't know. For sci-fi, Jerry Doyle was the one who had issues with alcohol that eventually killed him. Michael O'Hare had paranoid delusions and was seeing things that weren't there. Yeah, that's the mental health issues there. But that makes me incredibly... Oh, no. Okay, I did not know that. That happened. Oh, that kills me. I'm so sad to hear that. I didn't know that Garibaldi... Again, it's not much of a spoiler because that happened in 2016, but still. sad to hear that he passed away. That's awful. Rage Grifter, yeah, had a look. He had serious mental issues, not alcohol or drugs. Yeah. Glad that we were able to fix that. Animal Grim, I'll give you a hint. Fossy. You watched Birdcage, Animal Grim, didn't you? Thanatos Felicitas, I like the Jack the Ripper episode in season 2. Yes, I that one was towards the end of season 2 because that one's still fresh in my mind. Yeah, and the way that you know what's going to happen, but then you still wait for it to be official. And then the character who is there just quietly mentions the name Jack. And you're like, oh, I see what you did there. It was great. Keely Chow, it's a joke about your new office. Oh, okay. Well, that's why I was like, did you make the joke? Did someone else make the joke? I just wanted to make sure that something wasn't being, said that wasn't true. But no, it is true. I am clearly, I'm taking over. I'm taking over Geeks and Gamers. I'm taking over Nerdrotic. I'm taking over all the places. I'm clearly the brains behind everything. Look at my channel sub count versus everyone else's. Clearly, I am the mastermind. I have all the answers. Oh, goodness gracious. So, all right, we got about 4 minutes left. I'm trying to think about if there was anything that I said I was going to talk about that I have not talked about, because I've talked about the office, talked about the new office setup. I'm glad to hear that most of y'all are liking it. Don't worry. Again, there will be some other things up. So on this wall, there will be eventually like a TV, being mounted. And then also, there will be an icon. There will be a religious icon of Our Lady of Fatima. There is a channel, a YouTube channel, website, 1 Peter 5, part of Meaning of Catholic group. So anyone out there who watches those channels, you might already know about this, but they're selling an icon of Our Lady of Fatima, and any of the proceeds are being used to help build a chapel in Russia. There's a Catholic population in Russia that are trying to build a chapel in one of the major cities. And so proceeds are going to go to help that effort to fund it. And so that will probably be up in the background too, is that it's a beautiful icon. Beautiful. If you don't know what an icon is, just even if you're not Catholic, even if you're not Christian, it's a art style that I think the vast majority of people would be able to look at and say, oh, that's really pretty. I actually really like that. So I'm actually very excited. That should be getting in sometime this week. So that will probably be one of the first things that get up, I would have to imagine. So anyway, I talked about The Office, and as far as other things to talk about, so I guess I'll just pull this up for a second. Other box office news. So yeah, The Flash, if you missed this earlier, is projected to be a box office flop. Again, coming in well underneath the projections going into the weekend domestically. And if it's doing this badly domestically, I can't see how it possibly does any better internationally. And that would put the film's 3-day opening international. It would have to be coming in well underneath 150 million. And that is abysmal. Elemental is even worse, expected to come in, around 30 million or less domestically. So yet another massive flop for Disney there. Spider-Verse is still doing very well. So right now it's at 425. So this film is going to easily pass 450 worldwide, probably getting even close to $500 million worldwide by the end of this weekend, if I had to guess. So this film is also still doing very, very strong. And Little Mermaid is still a flop. So let's get to the last comments, and then we will call it a night. And I've got some ice cream waiting for me. Some delicious cookies and cream ice cream, of course. It is the best ice cream. Nothing beats cookies and cream. I'm sorry. You might have your favorite out there. You might really like a certain flavor of ice cream, but cookies and cream is where it's at. Even better is a cookies and cream shake. Oh, so good. Anyway, Rage Grifter says, Divergence explains the Klingons' appearance season 4, episode 16. It's a shame Enterprise was starting to get really good in season 4. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people recommend other seasons and other shows. I'm kind of like I like to do I like to watch things kind of in burst. So if I'm able to, at the pace that I'm going right now, I should be able to finish Babylon 5, maybe even by the end of June. We'll have to wait and see. Again, I'm starting season 3, and I only started a couple weeks ago, so I should be pacing, in that direction. So we'll have to wait and see. I do have some things set up for the next couple of weeks, though. I'm going out of town next weekend, so there will not be a Saturday night stream next week, as I will be at a family reunion, my wife's family reunion, in the St. Louis area, and which I always love because there's a great church there that has the Latin Mass. And it's just beautiful. If you've ever been to St. Louis, there's a place called the Oratory of Saints Augustine and oh my goodness, Saints Gregory and Augustine, or Augustine and Gregory, I think are the two. And it's a beautiful church for one, but also the priest who celebrates the mass is just such a beautiful celebration, and it's how the mass should be, simple as that. But so next weekend I will not be here, and I'll update y'all and remind y'all about that. But yeah, should be able to get through Babylon 5, I think. And if I am able to do that, I will hopefully be able to start diving into some other Star Trek stuff, old school stuff. Let's see, a man watching U95. That's not creepy. Welcome to the chat. I appreciate you being here. Hannibal Grimm, though, tagged to say, I never wear shoes. What's up? I never wear shoes. I never wear shoes. I never wear shoes. I fall down. I wish I had that movie perfectly quoted, but yes, it's Sludge, a nice break from coffee. Shout out to Laura who sent that mug. My wife loves that mug, and she uses it all the time. Aqua Odin, says Gary Bear to say which worthy. Yes, Aqua Odin. Seriously, with the walls around me, it definitely seems that way. I'm glad that it's this color though, because with the bright lights, like with the very I don't know if it'd be washed out, I guess. It's a very cool temperature. I have it on the bright white setting essentially. So I feel like with any other color, I would look sick or anything like that. But I think because of the background walls, this color actually works pretty well. So Kimberly G, is that Willow or River that's in the chair? That is Willow. That is Willow in the chair. And now she's curled up in a little ball. And yeah, it's quite adorable. In fact, I think I may have found out the reason as to why I could not get these things out of the way earlier. Let me see. No, that doesn't do it. Okay, that does it. Okay, yeah, I figured it out, people. There you go. You're welcome. There she is. Also, yes, the text is still going on the screen, but this is what allows for the text to be seen as I'm able to put this text up. So anyway, there she is. She's just in a little ball right there. Anyway, adorable. Jodo Winkster says, I got ice cream for me too. I never liked cookies and cream much though. Well, then you're just a heretic, all right? You are just evil. Abomination, I actually do have the capacity to do puppy cam. I just haven't done it in so long. I would not be able to figure it out now. But now that the chair is here and this is a lot easier to capture than before, whereas in the old office, they would be in different places to the point where it wouldn't be feasible. I'll definitely have to try to get the puppy cam back up and running for sure. Hannibal Grimm says, get that picky down. It's like a stool. Are they playing leapfrog on those plates? A man watching you tag to say, do you think Warner Brothers will learn from the failure of The Flash and edit Heard out of Aquaman? Seems pretty clear the Flash tanked thanks to Miller. A man watching you, I know. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people are going to assume Ezra Miller is what tanked the movie. Ezra Miller did not help the movie, and for a lot of people, Ezra Miller may have been the driving force for not going to see it. But a movie like this, to do this poorly, is for many, many other reasons. So ineffective marketing, terrible word of mouth, the fact that the story is so clearly unimportant because it's already been stated that they're going in a different direction. So there's no stakes to this movie either. So it does have an impact. It just is not the end all be all. And so getting to the original comment, no, I don't think they're going to edit Heard out of Aquaman because again, if Aquaman does poorly, it's not going to be because of Amber Heard. Will there be people that don't see it because she's still in it? Yes, but not to the extent, not to the degree that would make that much of a difference box office wise. So Miss Minnetonka fan says, any ice cream that is chocolate or has chocolate. Yeah. I get it. I love chocolate too. My favorite shake actually is probably black and white. So vanilla ice cream with chocolate syrup. Let's see. People says Crusade is eminently skippable. Too much network interference. Yeah. My wife's father is a huge fan of a lot of these sci-fi shows, so he had the entire series of Babylon 5, and I want to say he also gave us Crusade. I think we have all of the extra additional things that they had for the show. I might still watch it. Again, it might be skippable. For me, the Babylon 5 watch is going to be the series proper, so the 5 seasons, and any official movie that is directly corresponding to it. So, yes, indeed. Forever Sci-Fi. Odin got rid of green because he's purple. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yes, show love to the puppers. Giant Rat says, I like The Office. Thank you. I appreciate it. General Winkster, am I ex avocado for saying cookies and cream is terrible? Yes. In fact, thank you for reminding me about that. So yeah, General Winkster. Wait, General Winkster, you said that you don't like cookies and cream ice cream?
You leave me no choice but to declare you excommunicado.
You leave me no choice. Hannibal Grimm, that is on. Sorry, General Winkster. I apologize, Hannibal Grimm. General Winkster, you did that to yourself. Burst Angel, what's going on? Your Angel, your average predator, what's going on? Yes, thank you all again for being here, everybody. This has been a fun night. So I'm gonna be heading out as we are a little bit over time tonight. But seriously, you guys are all phenomenal people. I love you so very much. And just as a recap, Flash doing terribly, doing worse than had been previously imagined. Could end up being one of the biggest box office flops of the year. We'll have to wait and see. New Office, thank y'all for the kind words. Can't wait to get this further updated, and also to bring the puppy cam back now that the especially Willow, ever since this morning, today especially, since I have again not been in the office too much because we just set it up yesterday actually. So again, it's still relatively new. But ever since being in here, she's gone straight to the chair and kind of made it her nest, and it's been pretty great. So. And so thank you all again for those comments. And yeah, Babylon 5 starting season 3, and in fact that's probably what I'm going to start to go watch. Actually, scratch that, reverse it. For any wrestling fans out there, AEW Collision, I believe it's tonight. CM Punk is returning, as you all know. I'm a major mark for CM Punk. If you know wrestling terms, you know what that means. So I'll be putting that on and trying to catch up because I think it already started. But with all of that being said, I'm a pineapple pizza loving heathen. Hannibal Grimm, I take it back. You're also excommunicado. And then Mike Healy, have you seen any of For All Mankind on Apple TV? I don't think so. Let me see real quick what that show is all about. No, I have not seen that. I have not seen that show. I don't think I have. The first look, I didn't see. Yes, it is starting now. So thank you very much, Great Wuda. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Update on the schedule. So Monday morning, we will be off. I will not have the Good Morning Asgard podcast. So the Good Morning Asgard podcast will not be on Monday. And it's not because I'm recognizing Juneteenth. It's because the school is recognizing Juneteenth, which means Baby Thor will be at home. And so I will be entertaining Baby Thor through the weekend into Monday throughout the day. And so because of that, we will not have the Good Morning Asgard podcast on Monday. We will have the OMB Report live on my second channel, the OMB Report, talking about news and politics. So if you want that information, or you like that information, or you find that topic interesting, check out that second channel. So that'll be 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Good Morning Asgard podcast will then be back for Wednesday morning. Tuesday evening, we'll have our Welcome to Asgard podcast once again. And Friday Night Tights, I will be out this week because we will be driving to St. Louis. So no streams next weekend and tons of stuff happening. So seriously, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Thank you all very much for being here, for your love and for your support. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my June Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members at the Keeper, the Bifrost level and above. Starting off first with Patreon, Father Luca Illick, Hymir Irie Hymason, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange Hat Reviews, you can check it over at his YouTube channel, Orange Hat Reviews, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, who you can check out at her YouTube channel of Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, who you can check out at her YouTube channel by the same name as well. Also to my Subscribe Star peeps, Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK Man, who you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my Locals members, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, and Robert Barnes, the amazing lawyer. And again, thank you all very much for being my supporters. If you want your name shout out at the end of every live stream and every video, check out the top link in the video description below. You also can get access to things like a giveaways channel where I give away Blu-rays, 4K steelbooks, all kinds of stuff every single, most weeks in the month. I try to give away something, or at the very least towards the end of the month, I will make it up with several giveaways. Basically, most people are guaranteed to walk away with something at the end of every single month. So if you want access to that, again, check out the top link in the video description below, as well as access to an exclusive podcast. This past month, I was actually able to record a great podcast with Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment. So if you want access to that and also a plethora of other content, check out the link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.